Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's Workshop Wednesday session on Cloud9, transforming technical program management and cybersecurity. I'm super excited to have everyone join. My name is Prince. I am the Director of Business Operations here at Mentor Me Collective. And today we have an amazing session with Aderonke, who is a technical program manager at Google, and she is going to go through some amazing, not only knowledge and knowledge share, but also some great tools and tips that she learned throughout her career, and also how you all could, potentially transition into becoming a technical program manager. For those who are new here, welcome to Mentor Me Collective. We are a nonprofit organization focused on providing upskilling tools and resources to individuals who are either first gen or looking to transition their career into the tech arena. Last but not least, will be bringing up Aderonke to introduce herself and also kind of give us a little nuance into who she is. Hello, Aderonke. How are you?
Hi, Prince. Hello, everyone. I hope you guys can hear me clearly.
We can.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. Shout out to Chanel. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to be here. I've been trying a lot to prepare for this. I hope that this is going to be like a fun learning session for everyone, and I hope that everybody's able to take away something. So, a
Definitely.
brief intro about myself. My name is Aderonke. I'm originally from Nigeria. I'm currently working in Google as a technical program manager. I've been at Google for about 2 years now. Um, I was previously at Apple, and I was shout out to China Chanel. I didn't know her back then, but I see that she's also ex Apple. Sorry, I just got a chat. Um, and I also was at American Family Insurance. Um, so my my technical career spans mostly being, I was first an EPM at Apple. I was an engineering project manager, and now I'm a technical program manager. I'm about to be starting my master's soon in information studies. So I'm looking forward to that. Very excited about that. Um, I also have been a part of a few different organizations. Currently, the ARIN, which is the American Registry of Internet Numbers. It's basically the body that assigns IP addresses to um that assigns IP addresses. So I'm currently a fellow in that. I also do a little bit of writing here and there on the Nigerian more on the Nigerian space for um blogs, technical blogs in Nigeria. So that's like a brief intro of what I've been doing with myself for the past, I don't know, few years.
Well, we
So I
love
think, go ahead. Go ahead.
Sorry. So before we start, I wanted to again welcome everyone in. And I see that we have many individuals from across the globe. So I wanted to give people the opportunity to drop their flags into the comments so we know where you are hailing from. I know many of you are currently MMC scholars, which is great. But I also see we have individuals in our YouTube channel and LinkedIn channel. So I would love for you guys to drop your flags, let us know, and take it away.
Okay. Um, Thank you. So today we're going to be discussing um cybersecurity in cloud. And the title of this presentation is Cloud9, Transforming Program Management Cybersecurity. So next slide, please. I already gave an introduction of myself already. So I think we can move on to the next one. Okay, so the agenda for today, we have a few things that I wanted to cover. So we're first of all going to dive into security program in the program lifecycle. So the different things that we can do to secure our programs from the beginning to the end of of the phases. We're also going to talk about compliance and regulatory alignment. I see people in the chat from New Zealand and everywhere. Hi everyone. Um, we're also going to be talking about the role of identity and access management in in cybersecurity as in a cloud space, as it were. We're going to be talking about how to secure the different architecture that we have to secure the cloud. And we're going to talk about the role of automation and the cybersecurity tools, and we'll have some time at the end for questions and answers if anyone has any. So diving in. So how I think we can move to the next page, please. So how do we embed security in the program lifecycle? Right. Part of this presentation is going to cover the three different ways that we can do this. So in the early integration phase, we're going to be talking about how we can move security from a late audit stage to the very beginning of the life of the program lifecycle. So a lot of people think about security as towards the ending part of it, but I would want us from this presentation to look at it more holistically, which is how we can cover security from the first start of the project, right? So there are different catalogs that different security bodies have set, which help us to be able to add controls, right, into programs, into programs that we're building. So if somebody has, if an XYZ, let's just say company XYZ, right, has a program that they're trying to implement. And they're trying, and this is going to be a cloud program, right? So we would, and we're in the early stage of this project. Part of the things that we're going to be looking at is how to have, how to embed policies, right, and private and controls from there are different bodies who write these policies, right? One of them is the NIST, right? So, which is the National Institute of Standards and Technology. So, they create a comprehensive framework that helps organizations, mostly in the US, but now it has been widely accepted. So it's not just in the US now. So they help organizations to select and implement security controls based on off of their risk management strategies, right? So we also have the CIST controls. Before this used to be called the SANS Top 20, but now they call it the CIS controls. So this is a prioritized and simplified set of best practices, right? Most of all these controls are like best practices that the industry that are industry-wide standards, right? And for the CIS controls, this has been developed by the Center for Internet Security. So the first one, which is the NIST 800-53, right? This was from the National Institute of Standards and Technology. But the CIS controls is from the Center for Internet Security, right? And these focus on a limited number of controls, right, which are proven to defend against the most common and dangerous security cyber attacks. So nowadays we're seeing a lot of different attacks. Most the highest one we see a lot now are the ransomware attacks, right? So what are the ways that we can safeguard our programs against this is by adopting these frameworks, by adopting these privacy controls to ensure that we're able to protect both the tools that we'll be using and the other aspects of the program. So moving now on to the developer security operations portion of it, right? So what this means for us is this is when we integrate security into every phase of software development operations, right? Which is DevSecOps. So we are integrating security into both the development portion and the operations portion of the pipeline, right? We have different different platforms that can help us find and fix vulnerabilities in code. One of them that we have is called Snyk. SYNK is called Snyk. So that helps us to find and fix vulnerabilities in code and open source dependencies. Nowadays, a lot of people don't have to write code anymore by themselves. They could use maybe like the LLMs. LLMs, sorry, that word always trips me. Large language models like ChatGPT, Gemini, and stuff like that. And a lot of them, they use codes that are already open. They are open source codes that have been created by other people. So now, how do we bring in these codes into our own systems without making sure that we're not importing maybe viruses or other stuff like that? So now that is where all these tools come in. So a tool like Snyk helps us to find and fix vulnerabilities in code, open source dependencies, containers, and cloud infrastructure in general. Snyk integrates directly into developer workflows and CI/CD pipelines to shift security protocols. So basically, the reason why we're using a tool like Snyk is to find these vulnerabilities earlier on in the life cycle, so that we're not going too late into the end of the program and then we're saying, oh, we have a problem that we could have fixed, at the beginning, right? Another penetration testing tool that we can use is the Z attack proxy, right? This is another tool that different program managers use in their cloud in cloud to be able to help them with all this. Sorry, just want to make sure that I'm on time here. Looking at my timer. Okay, so this helps us with so I was talking about the Z attack proxy, which is also like a penetration testing tool that helps developers to automatically find security vulnerabilities in web applications while they're being. So this helps in the development and the testing phases of our programs, right? And then the last way of integrating security in our program lifecycle is to make sure that throughout the program, we're continuously monitoring security and making security a priority at every point, from the beginning of the lifecycle to the middle of the lifecycle to the end of the lifecycle, right? And one of the tools or one of the services that can help us to monitor throughout the life cycle is going to be, we could use AWS CloudTrail, right? This is a service that enables governance, compliance, and operational auditing in our systems. So we can use the AWS cloud services to the CloudTrail specifically to be able to monitor security at every level in our program lifecycle, right? Also, another one is the Azure Sentinel, right? But now it's called like the Microsoft Sentinel. So this is another cloud security and information management tool that helps us to track, security in the whole program as it were. Could we please move on to the next slide? Okay. So this is another important aspect of ensuring security in our program lifecycle. Now, different countries have different bodies, and there are also standard bodies all around the world that are regulatory bodies. So they provide a set of rules and best practices for us to be able to follow when we are building different programs or different projects, right? And it is imperative that per our countries and per our regions that we are building according to the according to the regulations that have been set. Because if we begin to build programs outside, we'll find out that they are not going to be relevant. So even from the beginning, we have to ensure that we're paying attention to the standards. Right? What does this mean? This means that we have a clear framework, right, of compliance that our programs must adhere to, and that is where, like, that is one of the major things that as program managers we have to look out for, right? The engineers on the team may not really be looking at that as much, and the other people on the team, but as technical program managers, our job is to look at it holistically. So to look at the program from the beginning to the end and making sure that we're able to add every part of compliance into this. Right. One for Europe, we have what is called the GDPR, which is the General Data Protection Regulation, right? And this is an European Union that regulates how organizations must protect the personal data of members of the European Union, right? And it is a critical standard for every company that is operating internationally or handling the data of European users. So these are part. So some regions may have their own regulatory compliances. Some countries may have. Now the GDPR specifically is for the European Union. American companies, or no, let me not use the word American. So global companies like maybe Google, the Googles, the Apples, the Microsoft, they have to make sure that when they're creating programs for members in this region, they are adhering to this framework, right? Another very popular one is the HIPAA, right? Which is on the healthcare side. That is the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, right? And that makes sure that sensitive patient information rights are protected. So that means that a company that has to do maybe that has to do like with the medical line has to ensure that every product that they're doing is redacting sensitive information of patients. So maybe the easily identifiable information is not linked to anybody or tied to anything. Maybe protection of social security numbers, protection of medical records, right? Now it is mandatory for any company, this is mandatory for any company working in this region to make sure that the health information of patients are protected, right? Another very important standard is the SOT, to which is the system and organization control, right? This is a set of standards for service organizations. It provides a detailed description of company systems and third-party auditors' opinion on the effectiveness of its security controls. So basically, it's bringing in another person to another organization to audit your security practices in your company, right? And that helps to also make sure that every standard that needs to be met is being met. Now, another way to ensure compliance and regulatory alignment is to make sure that the cloud platforms that are being used provides features to help and demonstrate compliance. So this is something to look out for when you're trying to pick a platform, a cloud platform for use in your organization, right? You need to make sure that, okay, whatever platform I'm using is able to help me manage compliance. If your platform doesn't cover that, then you need to be looking at something else. Now, what is an example of a tool or of tools that can help manage compliance? We have the AWS Artifact tool, right? That gives us on-demand access to AWS's security and compliance documents. So we can use, since they have like a whole database of this, we can use that to ensure that we demonstrate that the underlying cloud infrastructure that we are building, it meets the key standard. Another one is the Azure policy, right? It's a service in Azure that allows for creating and assigning policies to enforce rules and effects over resources, right? So one thing that we have to remember is that compliance is invaluable, right? It can ensure that all virtual machines, you know, it is important that we are building like programs from start on the right regulations, because if we do not do that, the entire program can be useless, right? So that's very, very important for us to note, right? Another important way of making sure that we are compliant is is proper vendor management, right? A lot of companies, they outsource a lot of their work. Outsourcing is good, but you have to make sure that the third party that you are exposing your client's data to, right, also has the proper infrastructure to be able to manage to be able to manage compliance and ensure compliance, right? So making sure that there's proper vendor management is very, very important. So you don't protect all your systems inside, and then your vendor is where your leak is coming from. That would not be a very, very good thing. I think that was like the major thing that happened with like the cloud strike. When the cloud strike breach occurred, was that earlier in the year or late last year? I don't remember the timing. But why it was such a big deal was because CloudStrike was a vendor that Microsoft was using, right? So we have to make sure that we are not the only ones that are compliant, but even the vendors that we're using are also compliant. So can you please move on to the next slide? Right. So another way that we can make sure that our another way that we can make sure to secure our cloud programs or cloud projects is to ensure that we are building on the principles of identity and access management. And that is crucial for for securing any cloud environment, right? Now, the first one is ensuring that we use the principle of less privilege, right? What does this mean? This means that a user, a process, or a program should be given only the minimum level of access that is necessary to perform their specific function. I feel like one company that is perfect at doing this is Apple. You know, I you know um they only give you what you need to know to perform the work that you know. And that is a very, very important concept that makes sure that privileged information is kept within the boundaries of the people that it should be with. That means that whoever does not need any information to work does not have that information. Whoever should not be in a certain area, in a building, does not have access to that area. It helps us to be able to make sure that information is siloed, right? Making sure that information is not spreading to departments that does not necessarily need it. Like now, let me just give an example in company XYZ, right? Company XYZ is a tech company that is working on maybe like let's just say a defense contract for the government, right? There's no need for there's no need for the architecture department or the design department of that firm to have any access to the information about the contracts to the government, right? That should be siloed away to make sure that the design department is only focusing on the design of if it's the infrastructure of the buildings or whatnot. So making so the long and short of this principle of least privilege is making sure that the people should only be given minimal. So, and I also want to make a point to note that it may not only be people in the principle of the least privilege, right? It could also be processes or programs, right? Making sure that you know a a a a process does not have access to another process that is not necessary for a job to be performed, right? So only giving the minimal level of access or permissions that is necessary to perform its functions, right? So another one which a lot of companies have been adopting more than before is the multi-factor authentication, or otherwise known as the MFA, right? What does this mean? It's a security measure that requires users to provide multiple, so it could either be two or more, multiple verification factors to gain access to a resource. Like maybe trying to log into your Google Cloud. For a lot of us, when you are trying to sign into Google from another device, maybe your Gmail or something, you have an option of approving that request, from another another device or another app like YouTube. So you go into YouTube and you press a yes, excuse me, and it gives you access into that system. So that is when you are employing a multi-factor authentication, right? So the reason why this is important is because it adds another layer of security beyond just putting in a password and logging into a system. It makes sure that it's like a backup. Another way you can see the same thing is maybe you send you're trying to log into somewhere, maybe like your bank account, and then you get a code sent to maybe your phone number or to your email address, and you put in the code and it helps you to log in. So that's another type of MFA, right? So another way that this is able to help is that even if somebody, let's just say, brute forces their way into your system, right, and they get your password and they're able to get in, they will still need another authentication, right? Which is how sometimes some people know, okay, maybe they've been hacked, maybe their Instagram has been hacked or their Twitter has been hacked, because sometimes they get a notification saying, did you request the password? If you didn't request the password, maybe ignore this message or report. So that helps you to know that another external person is trying to gain access to your system that is not you, right? So this is considered a best practice for all privileged and even general user accounts. And then lastly, role-based access control. So this is also called RBAC, right? So this is a method of restricting network access based on the roles of individuals within an enterprise. So this is a little similar to the principle of least privilege, but with a twist. Now, so users are assigned roles, and based off of the roles that they're assigned, it will determine the places, that they have access to, the documents that they have access to, or the things that they can even do. Now, implementing this role-based access control provides clear permissions, right? And it makes access management scalable and transparent. So if a person were to maybe get promoted and maybe have access to more, all you just have to do is change the role or maybe change the group that this individual has been. So it's one of the advantages of this is that it makes onboarding easy, or onboarding and offboarding easy. All you have to do is take people out of groups and put people in groups. That's it, right? And one of the reasons why it helps is because the user's access rights are, you know, like I said, they're either added or taken away based off of their roles. And one of the things that it does also is that it reduces the risk giving people too many permissions. Like what I know, one of the things that is commonly practiced in some companies is that they like to make sure that the they like to make sure that individuals don't own team files. So maybe there are folders for teams such that we can different people at different times can upload things into folders rather than one person having entire permissions to team information. So you basically just put everyone in that group where they can add or take out stuff, and then once their time is up on the team, maybe they move to a different team or they leave the company, you just remove them from the group, and that is, you know and that helps. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Okay, so um I think you don't have do you have the updated slide? Okay, it's fine. It's fine. I have the updated slide, so I'm just gonna use my notes. So, I'm so sorry. I think I sent him the slide that wasn't complete yet. So, what are the ways that we can secure? What are the different cloud architecture that? What are the different cloud architecture that we can use to secure our programs, right? So we have what is called the zero trust model. This is built up of this is built on a principle of never trust, always verify, right? That means that instead of assuming that everything inside a traditional network space is safe, you don't assume that any user or any device is trustworthy, right? And there are examples of tools that help in this. And one of them is the Google Beyond Corp. So it's relatively new, relatively one of the foremost ones that was used, and which is like which is cloud enabled. So it helps other it can be used traditionally by outside. So it's a different form of um, so okay, I'm just thinking of the best way to be able to explain it. So basically it allows users to be able to log into like corp systems without using traditional VPN, right? Um, I don't know if we're all familiar with VPN, but a lot of companies use VPN as a way to be able to get into systems like company systems rather than just going over the web. So they create a different environment for users to be able to go in, right? So what Google Beyond Corp does is that it verifies the identity and context of every request to access corporate resources. So it's like the middleman between the user and the company, right? So it kind of takes away the traditional VPN, and then Google Beyond Corp is standing in the middle and verifying each user before they have access into the system. The other one is Zscaler, right, which is another cloud security platform that also provides secure access to applications and the internet from any device and anywhere. So a lot of companies also use this. All these are different cloud platforms that you can use, Um, then we also, okay, can we please move to the next slide? Yes. Okay. So we have automation and cloud native tools. So so this is basically we're going to talk about in this portion, right? How automation is going to help cloud integration, like how the different ways that we can use automation to help our cloud programs, right? One of the ways is security testing, right? So in security testing, we embed automated security checks directly into the development lifecycle. If you remember, I believe it was in slide 2 when we talked about DevSecOps. So security testing is a core tenet of DevSecOps, right? So to be able to it helps us to be able to check security. It helps to give security checks at different points of development of the life cycle, right? One of the tools that we can use for security testing is the AWS Inspector. So this is just an assessment service that helps to improve the security and compliance of all applications deployed on AWS. So technical program managers that are currently using cloud, this is a tool that they can use, AWS Inspector. So it automatically discovers and scans in the environment for vulnerabilities and unintended network network exposure. So another one we have here is configuration management, right? So this is ensuring at all points that the cloud infrastructure itself is configured securely and is consistently secure, right? So one of the tools that we can use for this is IAC, which basically allows us to define and define cloud infrastructure in a human readable language. Another tool that we have for configuration management specifically is Chekhov. I don't know how many of us have heard of Chekhov, right? It's just an analysis tool that is designed to scan IAC files, right, to identify security and compliance misconfigurations. So whenever there's a misconfiguration in a file, it just tells us, okay, this is what it is, and and we can easily fix it, right? So by pairing all these tools together, we can ensure that security policies are enforced at the code level. This is like coming down like to the code level to make sure that no insecure configs are ever deployed. Because once we deploy the wrong configurations, we leave our systems at risk to to many, um, to many, how do you call it, threat actors, right? So then, lastly, we have incident response for the on the automation side, right? So this is these are systems that we are, or this is a way of ensuring that when we have maybe like a threat incident, right, we have things to um attack, to deal with the attack immediately. So we have something called the SIEM, right, which is a which is a system that basically has like a log, keeps the security log and events across the entire environment. So it's one of the popular tools for this is Splunk. So um Splunk basically tracks when users log in and out of the systems, at what time they log in. So this helps us to be able to have a central dashboard, right, to to monitor threat detection, investigation, and also incident response, right? Another one is also DLP, right? So this is which is data loss prevention, right? It's just a strategy of ensuring that we have policies and tools, right, to prevent sensitive data from leaving an organization's network, right? And then moving on to the cloud native tools, right? We have some tools that we can also, like all these tools that have been listed. So a lot of this presentation is just giving us a general overview of the different tools that we can use to ensure both security and also compliance in all the programs that we're running. So I'm just trying to give a brief um just a brief overview of the different, because we have like so many tools and not everyone, is knowledgeable about the different ways of protecting, our programs and our systems. So the major thing that is the highlight for me for this presentation is just to give a lot of us a is just to give a lot of us a um what you call it, to give us an idea of the different tools that are all out there, right? And sorry, I'm a little distracted by the chat. Um, Prince, we don't have to answer this question right now, right? We could do that at the end of the presentation, right? Can you guys still hear me? Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So, um, so, so I just want to give everyone, on the call, just a brief overview of the different tools that are out there that we can use for our programs. A lot of them are open source, some of them we have to pay, but just to give us that awareness. Awareness is like one of the first major parts of, cybersecurity. Knowing, that first of all, everybody's not friendly, and then knowing how to guard ourselves and our systems against threat actors at all points in time. So, um, I hope I'm doing good with time. Can we move to the next slide, please? Okay, so we have come to the end of this presentation. So hold on 1 second, please. I have two screens, so moving from two screens not easy. So that's all for now. I'm excited to jump into some questions. If you
Well,
haven't
listen, thank
done
you.
so, okay, go ahead.
No, you can finish. Go ahead.
Okay, if you haven't done so, please post your questions in the chat, and Prince would read them up for me, please.
Yes, definitely. Well, first, thank you for the insightful information. That was amazing. I learned a lot, and I know a ton of individuals learned a lot in regards to MFA, and just overall how to, set up your overall security posture, right? So you did an amazing job, and I'm like taking notes, and I'm like, I need to make sure I build, whenever I'm building, right? I want to make sure that it's secure and I know what to do. So, as you stated, we'll definitely go through some questions. If you all have questions, please post them now. But the first question that we have, which is a great question from Talia, what's one leadership skill every technical program manager should master in cybersecurity?
Sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. So, I feel like, and this is obviously my opinion, right? Somebody else will have a different opinion, but I feel like communication is always a big thing, you know, because a lot of times we can have maybe an incident, maybe we can have an incident where somebody quote unquote hacks into a system, right? And okay, let me give two actually. So the first is communication, and the second one is documentation. But let me start with documentation before communication. So it is very important for every TPM to be able to know how to translate data that they have into a meaningful format for people who are not very technical, right? A lot of times, TPMs could be in positions where they are presenting information to people in quote unquote top management who may not really care much about the nuances of technicalities, right? And they could also be presenting information about quote unquote, like specifically in this context, right? Maybe a an incident that has happened to people that are below them. So you want to be able to be somebody that is able to take information, break it down into bite sizes for both up level people and lower level people, and making sure that there is a good understanding of what happened, how it happened, with timelines to to be able to ensure that better systems are put in place to ensure that this does not happen again. It's not enough for us to be able to identify that an attack has happened, but more importantly, in creating maybe like a postmortem, right, it's important for us to be able to communicate whatever valuable information we have to teams that can be able to take action on them in a way that makes the most sense. So, which is why documentation and communication ties in, right? So, you can knowing how to write the right things and how to be able to, so knowing how to write stuff in the right format and in the right ways help to be able to um share, to be able to hold on, let me backtrack a little bit. So the basis of what I'm trying to say is ensure that you know how to document properly and ensure that you know how to communicate what you have documented in the right way. So that's the long and short of what I'm saying. I don't know if that answers your question, Salabi.
Next question. I think it did. It did amazingly as well. We have from Kat. What is something you find that everyone tends to overlook in cybersecurity, but you would consider important?
I think I would say that a lot of people are too trusting about a lot of things. Like the first thing is like public Wi-Fi. People will just connect to whatever Wi-Fi they have just because their network is bad. And being somebody in the cybersecurity space, and as I have been for a while, I am very, very careful not to just connect to every Wi-Fi. A lot of companies, they don't even let you access their systems on public Wi-Fi. Some companies make you have like maybe work phones and then you use the hotspot from your work phone. Or some companies like some companies don't even let you access public Wi-Fi with their systems, period. So I would say it's usage of public Wi-Fi. To answer your question, Kat.
Next question from Ike G. How do you ensure compliance with a third party? Is it ensuring that they have certifications like SOC 2 or etc.?
So I think that is one of them. But however, it's another part that is very, very important. The bigger the company you have, the more you'll be able to do this, is to ensure that you vet vendors properly, right? And proper vetting of vendor companies is very, very important. Ensuring you are able to, a lot of companies have departments that make sure that vendors are in compliance. So it's creating these kinds of frameworks to ensure that um your all the vendors that are being used are properly vetted. Going going as far as maybe like if there are ways of doing maybe background checks on a company. I don't know if there are frameworks like that, but that would really help in ensuring compliance.
Thank you for that. Next question from Zin. How involved are TPNs in technical decision making? Can you give us some examples from your experience?
Okay, I would say for one that this depends on the level of the level of technical depth that the TPMs have, right? So for me right now in my career, I'm not very involved in a lot of technical decisions. I facilitate more of process management and process improvements rather than actually influencing the technical portions. But in the past, where I've had to use some of my some more maybe cybersecurity skills, right? I would say that it's really about how much you know as it relates to the role that you're currently in. So at a time for me, I was more cybersecurity focused, but now I'm in a time in my career where I'm more on the networking side. So like actually building networks. I work a lot with like data centers and building um building processes for devices in data centers. So that's like a different portion. But I would say that for a lot of TPMs, right, the P is more heavily emphasized for the P is more heavily emphasized. The T portion would be for like more like the engineers, at least in my career.
Makes total sense. And the next question we have from Nigel. Do you find that customers are more accepting of passwordless options for login?
Um, I I would say that it really depends on the customers that you're servicing, you know. So if you're servicing like it really depends on the maybe not demographics, but just the type. But I would not say, well, speaking of myself as a customer, I would not go for a passwordless option. That just tells me that all my information is out there in the open. And I feel like I have switched on tools that are easy to log into compared to tools that have MFA. Nowadays, I'm tilting more towards the option of tools and services that have MFA rather than things that are just open out there and anyone can just, security and data is the most important thing in the world right now.
I would second that, and I agree with what you're stating as well. Next question from Aja. What's the difference between MFA and secure verification?
So um MFA is adding that additional layer, right, of security. So in MFA, a lot of times we there has to be like maybe a second device or a second, maybe like a second maybe it's a second device or maybe another app, right? So it's going beyond one point in one place, right? So, like the example I gave earlier on of trying to log into like my Gmail. Um, so when you try to log into a when you try to log into maybe a tool or a system and then you have a prompt leading you to confirm logging in from another place, right? Could be a device, it could be a another tool, right? Um, but just making sure that another point of entry other than where the first maybe password or um login was originated from, and you have another way of allowing access into the system. So that's how I'd answer that.
Okay, and the next question from Tifa. I know that we need MFA, and millions are now using biometrics for authentication. How do we protect ourselves from bad actors from using our voice prints for AI and using it for impersonation? It's a great question.
Oh, that's a very good question. So, sorry, just reading the question one more time. Yeah. Okay. So I know that a lot of different companies have right now have a lot of ways that they deal with this. And I know that a lot of companies, what they do now is they ensure that your information is not stored in their system after a certain amount of time, right? So maybe you put in your biometric once, they maybe after maybe 6 months, they take it out. So um I know that there are a lot of companies that do this, and I also I'm not sure if there are regulations around this now, but I know that at least for some companies, after 6 months, they delete your maybe like personally identifiable information just to ensure that your information is kept secure. Now, I cannot say like the same thing for every company out there, but um I would say that the biggest thing for things like this is just ensuring that there are more government regulations around stuff like this, because a lot of companies build frameworks on these regulations. So it's the best place that this can come from is like policy changes to actually address this thing specifically.
Makes total sense. And I know that want to be conscious of time. Are you able to stay on a bit longer so that we can answer the additional questions?
Um, I, I'm, I think I'm able to stay on for like an extra 5 minutes.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll go through some of the questions that have been asked that are similar but in different ways. And if you do not see your question, please understand that it's due to time, but we'll try to get to them. But one question that stood out: what are some strategies for making the role-based access control process less tedious. It's good to be safe, but how can you balance getting work done and keeping safe?
So sorry, I just have to connect my charger. Give me 1 second. So, in role based, right? In as much as it could be tedious, I think something that would really help is actually, you know, is like maybe the creation of groups and ensuring that the the way people are put in groups are very, very clear, such that you don't have to keep changing um the policies around adding people to group and taking people out of groups. So in the initial phase of the creation of those groups, if you make sure that the entry and exit protocols are clear enough, and I think you should be able to have scripts that will be able to run on autopilot based off of just checking, maybe somebody else has been added, right? And just checking, okay, based off of this person's department, how much information should they have access to, or how much information should they not have access to? So if those principles are already clear from the initial creation of these groups, I feel like they will run on autopilot, and you don't need to change that much for the rest of the time, except maybe major changes happen in the organization. Maybe like what do you call it? Maybe there's a change in the like command chain, or
Mhm.
maybe like there's a change in like the reporting. There's a change in the reporting chain, so that way people are. That's the only time that things should actually really be changed. So I don't know if that helps to answer your question.
And next question we have is from Shri. How can we actually train our AI systems to follow the security rules our company needs without leaving any gaps?
Okay, that's a very good question.
Very good question.
So I feel like training AI systems that is a very, very broad topic, and a lot of times it really depends on training AI systems for each place, like maybe each company's structure. It really depends on what each company quote unquote values, right? I feel like values come to play a lot, in the sense of, a lot of times, like even in our world today where we have the chat GPTs and the Geminis, right? It's not because I work in Google, but one of the things that I've seen is like Google Gemini is a very, very careful kind of AI, which is why a lot of people don't think it's as smart as maybe like the chat GPTs. Right? Gemini is very careful in the way that it's gives out information. So a lot of times, right, training AI models really depends on like the values of the company. Now, I know that there are a lot of um there right now. I feel like right now, AI is booming at a very, very fast rate, and there's not as much time to be able to pass legislation to actually guide a lot of things that AI is doing. Because guiding of legislation itself is a process that takes a lot of time. So more, we'll find out that more more different kinds of AI are coming out faster than the rate at which regulations are being put to safeguard the things that they are spitting out. So um, I would say that there is a lot of it. There's a lot about the ethics of AI that I cannot really talk about right now, because there are more there are more regulations that still need to be put in place to ensure like AI is safe, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense. So it seems like we as individuals, if we're using AI, should definitely have working knowledge of the guidelines and frameworks with AI specifically. Would you agree with that?
Yes, definitely.
And the next question we have, it's more or less to understand you and sort of give tips and pointers. Since you have been through two FANG interviews and were successful with both, how do these interview processes differ from a typical interview?
That's a very good question. So I would really say that in my opinion, I didn't go through the interview processes like typical candidates. So for me, my interview with Apple, I only had one interview with the hiring manager, and I got the job from there. I didn't even have to speak with the recruiter at all. And all so, but for my interview with Google, I had like I think 3 rounds, and some of it were very technical, and I was able to pass. However, the last one was when I had an interview with my current manager. One thing I would say is you have to be like impressionable. I feel like there are a lot of smart people that are going to come and get interviewed, but not everybody leaves an impression, right? And sometimes your impression, like it could be you saying something that makes you sound human. A lot of times when people go into these interviews, they go with an intention to kind of like show off all like their abilities and their certifications and their 1 million things. But sometimes just remember like you're a human being, and sometimes it could be your hobbies that stick with the person. I feel like my major thing is wanting to leave every conversation and making sure that the other person remembers me, whatever it is that you want them to remember you for. But just be so impressionable that they're thinking about your conversation with them throughout the day, if that makes sense.
Makes total sense. Thank you for that. And the last question, what's a common misconception people have about this role? And if there's any advice you have for someone who's completely new to tech, and I'm assuming they want to transition into this role later in their career.
Okay, so this is a great question, right? I feel like a lot of times some people assume that technical program managers are um just they're pro well, they assume that you don't really need a lot of skills to get in, and that's not very true, right? I feel like this is where like being a technical program, so in some companies this role is also called an engineering pro project manager, or I think it's either project or program, I don't remember too clearly. But a lot of times, a lot of people assume that you just need to know how to manage a project. But I don't really think that that's all that matters. I think that the T in being a technical program manager is very important. In You have to know your way around a lot of things. You have to know certain frameworks. You have to know basic cybersecurity stuff. You know, a lot of people they just see it as mostly people skills or soft skills. But I'm here to tell you that those are not the only things that you need to be successful in this role. I feel like you have to, pay attention to understanding. Like for me right now, I don't, I'm not a coder. I wouldn't say I'm a programmer. I don't know how to code, but I definitely know how to read a few lines of code. That is very, very important, in just understanding. We talked about automations earlier. Automations is just script writing. So if you enter into this role with an idea that I can just wing my way through and I not know some basic things, what would take somebody maybe like 3 or 4 hours to write a script for, you will spend weeks trying to sift through different things while you just needed a script to fix that. You spend time going through logs and going through different things. All you needed was to write a script that can check through everything. So, in my opinion, I feel like prioritize the T more than the program part, and then you would be definitely advantaged for the role.
Great tip. I would definitely second that. So Aderonke, please, thank you so much for your time. I know that is now 7:06. I want to be conscious of your time. Thank you for giving us tips, pointers, your perspective, and answering the questions. At this time, we will ask you to drop. Are you open to individuals reaching out to you, and how can they reach out to you?
Okay. So I believe I forgot to add my email address to the slide, but oh, it wants me to connect to YouTube to be able to connect. But I would go ahead and put my Prince, I'm gonna send it to you in our chat. And
Okay.
maybe you can print it you can post it like on the public chat.
Yes, so I'll definitely see if I can do that. So, everyone, if you are interested in connecting with her, you have the opportunity to do so. I will also try to find a way to get this out to our like MMC channels as well if we're not able to post it on here. But again, thank you so much. We appreciate everything that you have done, and we look forward to connecting with you in the future.
Thank you so much, Mentor Me, for having me, and thank you so much, everyone online. It was nice being here, and I hope everyone was able to learn a thing or two. Have a great day, everyone.
Harlem, have a good one.
Bye.
Alrighty, everyone. Thank you again for joining us and Mentor Me Collective for this week's On Cloud 9 Transforming Technical Program Management in Cybersecurity. Again, we have a upcoming session next Wednesday for the month of August. So everyone, please look out for that. We'll be sending out the information for the next upcoming session. We appreciate you all for joining us for this hour, and you all have a great night.